Well, unfortunately, we're seeing record-breaking temperatures throughout Southeast Asia. If we just look at our large major cities, Bangkok, Jakarta, Manila, Singapore, Kuala Lumpur, we're all experiencing a heat wave right now with a heat index in excess of 40 degrees C.
Compared to previous years, we're seeing some of the hottest temperatures on record, like you mentioned. How did we get here?
Well, I think simply we've got to this point because society did not listen to the climate scientists. 20, 30 years or so, climate scientists were predicting that if we did nothing about our greenhouse gases, that we would have these record-breaking temperatures. So here in Southeast Asia, climate science is very complicated, but at some points, it's so very, very simple. In the time period between around May and June every year, in Southeast Asia are the warmest times of the year, the intermonsoon period. We also have the warmest times in the decade from natural variability associated with El Nino. And then we have the warmest times since records began from human-induced climate change. So you just combine together the warmest times in the year, the warmest times in the decade, and human-induced climate change, and we get these record-breaking temperatures. In 2023, we shattered records. China experienced 50 degrees C. In Myanmar right now, we've got 47 degrees C. But unfortunately, this time next year, we're likely to break records again. And the same in 2026, and the same in 2027, until we listen to what the climate scientists are warning about society.
What impact is it having on society and everyday life? Perhaps you could use Singapore, where you're based, as an example.
Well, here in Singapore, we have extreme heat that has lasted for several weeks, and it's likely to last several months more. What are the impacts on that? Well, obviously, there's now stress on the electricity grid because more and more people are trying to escape this deadly heat by going into air conditioning. But we have other impacts on those that are less fortunate, are unable to get out of the extreme heat. Let's think of our construction workers. They have to work 6, 7 days a week in the midday sun, in the mid-afternoon sun. They cannot escape this. So they have health impacts, and then those health impacts impact the medical services. So there are a whole host of impacts. Originally, you talked about school closures. So we have school closures in different parts of Southeast Asia because quite simply it's too dangerous for the school children to be in classrooms that don't have adequate cooling or ventilation. So this is a situation that we're in right now, and we need to think about rapid, urgent measures to adapt our urban areas.
Well, according to a new report by the World Meteorological Organization, Asia is warming faster than the global average. Is that correct?
Well, in some reasons, that's slightly misleading because all land areas warm faster than the oceans. Remember, we're a blue planet, so 70% of the Earth's surface is the oceans. And just basic laws of physics, oceans take slower to warm up than the land masses. What particularly concerns me about Southeast Asia is the lack of resilience. Here in Singapore, a developed nation, we have the resilience. There is air conditioning for the vast majority of people. We have a government that puts out regular warnings about heat stress. But in other areas of Southeast Asia, we do not have such warnings. There isn't the access to air conditioning. And then additionally, in many of the urban areas, we have the chronic problem of air pollution.
Can you tell us more about your findings? One of the Earth Observatory's missions is to conduct research in climate change in and around Southeast Asia towards safer and more sustainable societies. What can you tell us?
Well, we have many such endeavours where we're trying to use world-class research here at the Earth Observatory of Singapore and apply it in our neighbouring countries to try and protect people. For example, we have over 170 monitoring stations in 8 different countries, and we get data from there on atmospheric moisture to try and forewarn of rapid rainfall events and landslides. We get information on ocean height, so we can try and project tropical cyclones or typhoons that move into an area and cause disasters. And we can also think about sea level rise. When we think about Southeast Asia, well, globally, if we have a disintegration of our ice sheets at the Greenland and Antarctica, around 1 billion people are going to be influenced by that. But 60 to 70% of those are here in Southeast Asia. So one of the critical missions of the Earth Observatory is to basically provide projections at an unprecedented resolution. We provide that to our cities around Southeast Asia so they can better prepare and better adapt.
And just finally, are you hopeful we can eventually reverse climate change? What will it take, and what do you think is holding us back as individuals from taking action?
Well, climate change, as you see on your news programme, is now a critical issue. We need to address this as an emergency. But in contrast to, let's say, the COVID pandemic, when the COVID pandemic started, we didn't have a vaccine. With climate change, we have all the solutions in front of us. We know exactly what to do. We need to mitigate our greenhouse gas emissions. And now we have renewable technologies that produce energy cheaper than our petroleum. We also know that we must protect our natural world. We need to protect our coral reefs, such as the barrier reef in Australia. We need to protect our tropical rainforests, our mangroves and our wetlands, because they simply provide the air that we breathe, but importantly, they store the carbon dioxide that we pollute. So, of course, there's a lot of hope there, because despite all these climate emergencies, we still have time. It's not too late. But at some point in the future, you may talk to a scientist such as myself, and I'll say that there is no hope, that we have not listened to the experts, and we've pushed the needle too far, and there isn't a way to cool down planet Earth. But right here, right now, we have all the solutions. We just need to act.
Yes, and we're already feeling the effects if we don't. Professor Benjamin Horton, great to get your views. Thank you.
Thank you very much.